Hello, welcome. In this video, I'm just going to hopefully quickly go over the expectations of the rest of the semester. So I'm here in Canvas, and I'm just going to go here to where it says syllabus. And the syllabus, it's going to give a course summary of all of the rest of the assessments that are due for the rest of the semester. So you will notice here that on Tuesday, May 5th, you have a lot of stuff due. Well, you don't really, because if you've already taken your quizzes, all I did was move the due date of all the quizzes to Tuesday, May 5th, which is the day before your final exam. So if you have not completed any quizzes, this is a chance for you to complete those quizzes, to review the content. A lot of the content in those quizzes is very interesting and very helpful. So it's not just, I didn't move it, the due date, just to give you guys points. I also moved it because it's a good review tool to review a lot of the important concepts in this course. In addition, I've moved the final 3 programming assignments to Tuesday deadlines. These are firm deadlines. If you do not complete program 9 by the due date, or 10 or 11, they will not be graded. Do not ask. Do not ask for an extension. I'm making it very clear right now that program 9, program 10, and program 11, you need to do these programs in order to study for your final exam. On these programs, I have given you a lot of assistance, and I've given you videos that step by step go through the programs. I've given you code. I've given you skeletons. So there really is no reason that you should not be able to complete these programming assignments it shouldn't take you that long to complete the program assignments because everything is right there. If you want to ask me any questions, please send me emails and be very specific with your questions, and I'd be very happy to help you. So going back here, for the rest of the semester, you have 3 programming assignments and quizzes, and you also have your final exam. So your final exam is May 6th. If you score better on your final exam than on exam 2, I will count your final exam score for both the final exam and the exam 2 score. I do want to show you 2 other things that are here. The first is this student survey. The student survey is worth 3 bonus points. So you click on here, you take the survey, you answer the survey, and just for completing the survey, you will earn 3 bonus points. The other item that is here needs some explanation. And that is where it says programming assignment right here. So if you had a problem with any of your programming assignments, you are eligible to resubmit 1 programming assignment. You can resubmit. So for example, if your program 3, you got a 2 out of 5, and you would like to fix your program 3 and resubmit it and try to get a 5 out of 5, you can do that, and then the score for program 3 will be overwritten with the 5. If you missed a programming assignment, you can resubmit and hopefully get those 5 points for the missed assignment. The only assignments that are eligible to be resubmitted are program 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, or 8. 9, 10, and 11 are not eligible to be resubmitted. You are working on them now. And 5 and 6 are not eligible because in the assignments, I gave you my code for program 5 and program 6. But if you missed a deadline, if you want to resubmit try to get some points back, you have until May 1st to resubmit any one of the listed programs here. If you try to resubmit, I will be grading these. So if you try to submit an assignment that is not listed here, it will not be graded. If you try to submit after the May 1st deadline, it will not be graded. All deadlines for the rest of the semester are very firm. So please take note of that and plan accordingly. Everything has been available and posted for you with time to complete all of this. All right, so the next place I'm going to go is to the assignments. Put them by type. So in your programming assignments, there are 11 programming assignments. Like I said, if you wanted to resubmit one because see program 1, I got a 2.55, so I would like to redo my program 1 and try to get a 5 out of 5, then after it's graded, that new score will override the old score if it's higher. So out here, in your programming assignments, there are 11 programming assignments. The lowest grade programming assignment will be dropped in the calculation of the final grade. In your quizzes, there are 11 quizzes. The 2 lowest grades will be dropped in the calculation of your final grade. And like I said before, if your final exam score is higher than your exam 2 score, I will count your final exam score for your exam 2 score. I will not override your exam 1 score. Your exam 1 was a paper-based in-class exam, and so that it is not eligible to be overwritten by an online test, an online non-proctored exam. So don't ask. All right, so these are the bonuses. If you did the practice quiz for exam 2, you got 5 bonus points. If you did the student survey, you will get 3 bonus points. And if you do the programming assignment and resubmit for one of your older programming assignments, you are eligible to get that old score overridden. So now I'm going to go into the module section. So in the module section, you have these labs with definitions and coding. These labs are very, very helpful. So I encourage you to take a look at them. You also have this final exam preparation section. I am still working on the final exam sample questions, but they will be there. Today is only April 21st. Your final exam is May 6th. At this time, you still have program 9 due today, program 10, program 11, and your program redo if you're interested. All of that work is working on your programming assignments, program 9, 10, 11, 8, and 7. So programs 7 through 11 are going to be understanding how those work, understanding how to answer those questions, understanding how to do those functions, understanding the concepts from those programming assignments will be extremely helpful in answering your final exam questions. But I will be posting the final exam sample questions very soon. Going down here, the content for the final exam, it does include everything from the entire class with the focus on chapters 7 through 12. But I will go through some details here and maybe help guide you a little bit to studying this content. So in chapter 7, I've moved all my videos from chapter 7 through the rest of the semester onto YouTube because some of that content could hopefully be useful to some of you even after the semester's over when you're not pressuring yourself to study for your grades and deadlines, and you want to really, you should be really trying to learn it now, but I do understand that when there's pressure and there's grades and all of that, so I decided to leave them onto YouTube, and so I encourage you to download and keep the code examples that go along with the videos and the notes so that you can reference that, because moving on, when you move, this is a foundation course, this is a prerequisite course for another course. So there are certain objectives and certain concepts that you really should understand leaving this course and moving on to the next one. All right, anyway, so you have in chapter 7 is about arrays. So these are arrays. You need to know how to search an array. For the final exam, you do not need to how to sort an array other than keeping an array in order, like we did on your exam 2. You had one question where you had to keep the array in order, but there will not be any questions on sorting arrays on your final, but there could be a question on two-dimensional arrays. Strings, you should understand how to use C strings, and you should, this semester, it's even more important to have an understanding of C strings and then understand how the C++ string class works. So there are some videos here on C strings and C++ string class. And here are the notes. And these are all code examples, working code examples that, as you read through the notes and you watch the videos, the best way to program actually is to not just to grasp concepts and definitions and terms, but to actually take code, put it in your compiler, read the code, trace the code, follow what's happening in the code, make changes to the code, test it, and see what's happening. So practicing with the code, with programming, with your own ideas is the best way to learn how to program. So I've given you a lot of examples here, but don't just take the example and stick it in your compiler and run it and execute it. That's not doing you any good. What's doing you good is reading the code, making changes, seeing what happens if you change something. And there's a lot of content here, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You just work a little bit and then come back, and then the more you work through it, the more you will understand it. Chapter 9 is pointers and dynamic arrays. So please watch the videos. There are videos on pointers and dynamic arrays. You should understand what the dangling pointer problem is. Passing a pointer by reference. We did that with our dynamic array in the test and the double functions. So I made a video of that as well. There's also code examples here that are simpler, smaller code examples than just the guess game that we were working on. Chapter 10 is all about structs and classes. So in chapter 10, we have been using a class the entire semester, just like a struct. So now we're just defining a struct officially in this chapter, which hopefully you already knew from your C class. And structs of structs, that's what a hierarchical struct is. Classes and member functions and accessor and mutator functions. These are very important concepts. The other important concepts from chapter 10 is understanding what a constructor is, what an explicit value constructor is, what public and private member variables are. And so there are a lot of examples here using those concepts. So also programs, your program starting with program 9 starts with the class concept. So 9, 10, and 11, you have member functions. So practicing programs 9, 10, and 11 will be very helpful for you in understanding how to use class and class member functions. Chapter 11 and chapter 12. This is very important because I only picked a small select amount of content from chapter 11 for your final exam. So for chapter 11, I'm giving you an example of what a friend function is. You should understand the concept of a friend function from chapter 11. You should also understand the concept of overloading an operator, but the only operator that you need to understand how to overload for your final exam is the equal to operator. I will be adding a lot more examples in the not on final section because there's a lot of very useful overloading operators and examples, but because of the time and because of the inability to meet as a live class, I've selected certain content for your final exam. The other thing is, going back here, you should get very familiar with the day of year class right here. This is the day of year class because this is the same class that I used to introduce the friend function and the overloading the equal to operator. And if you're watching the videos, then that's the example that I'm also following in the video. And then as an added example, I added a bank example here as well. But you should understand what a constructor is, a default constructor, and an explicit value constructor. Those are very important. You should also understand how to overload functions. So overloading functions is also a concept that is very important to understand for your final exam. All right, so back to chapter 11. a friend function and overloading the equal to operator. And then chapter 12, the only part of chapter 12 that is important for your final exam is the concept of understanding separate compilation. So when you do separate compilation, you break your class into two files. Your class has a header file, which is where you describe, it's called the definition, but I don't want to confuse you with the term because we used to say function definition. The header file contains the prototypes and the declaration or the definition, the explanation of your class. So that's the header file. And then the .cpp file of your class, that contains the implementation of the functions of your class using the scope resolution operator. So you should be familiar with everything that I just said. And then you have the application file, which in our case, for our separate compilation, we have only 3 files: a header file for our class, a .cpp file for our class, and the application file is the file that contains the main function. So you should be familiar with this idea. And I did it with 2 programming assignments, program 10 and program 11. So you have 2 programming assignments in which you practice separate compilation files. The items in program 11 that will not be on your final exam, but I'm going to tell you that they are very important because our program 11 contains a dynamic array. It means that it contains memory that is allocated dynamically. Anytime when your class contains dynamically allocated memory, you should include a copy constructor, a destructor, and an overloading the assignment operator. So I have included that for completeness in program 11, but that will not be on your final exam. So for your final exam, just focus on the separate compilation, the dynamic array, having a class that has a struct inside of it, your regular constructor, your default constructor, but these other concepts will be added in more detail in the not in final section. All right, so hopefully this helps you to understand the content for the rest of the semester. And if you have any questions, I really encourage you not to make any assumptions, but ask me. I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.